Hello friends, for today's video I wanted to go through what Reddit has considered to be some of the best new fantasy releases of 2025. This was a very casual post that I stumbled upon, and it was just, speaking of casual, I'm starting the video with my dog walking into the frame and she's so cute, so who cares. I kind of stumbled upon this post where somebody was asking, hey, what do you think are the best new releases that we've gotten so far this year? And I was curious to see what the difference would be between some of the books that I've really liked and resonated with versus some of the things that Reddit has. I also thought this would be a fun way to maybe bump certain things up on my TBR, because some of the books that people were mentioning I haven't heard a whole lot about. I'm so sorry. She's got to get comfortable. What are you going to do? So there's some books on there that I'm really excited about. There's some books I want to get around to that I haven't yet, but I plan to. So for example, A Drop of Corruption, I absolutely plan to get around to that pretty soon. And a lot of people were continuously citing that one as one of their favorites from this year. And then there were some that I have read and it seems like a lot of people on Reddit like, and that was fun to see. And there were some that I kind of disagree with. So I thought it'd be fun to go through those and just sort of compare and contrast my taste to some Reddit users. On that note, I would love to know what has been your favorite new fantasy release from this year, and then what has been one that you see so many people praising and you're like, I don't get it. I would love to know. I'm basically going to end up answering those questions as we go through the list, so let's jump into it. First off, we have Grave Empire by Richard Swan. And I have talked about this one quite extensively as I read it earlier in the year, and as a result, I have talked about it many a time since reading it, as I not only thought it was fantastic, but also I think that it is doing fantasy horror so well, and that is a subgenre that I would love there to be more of. But I also fear that this one's going to have spoiled me for a lot of the fantasy horror that is out there. It's kind of hard to pin down the exact setup for this story, especially because you don't want to reveal too much, but you follow a few different perspectives, one of whom has a lot of knowledge and is in kind of an academic setting, and they're furthering their studies, and they are tasked with kind of going on this quest, we'll say, and trying to figure out what's been going on in the after, because the after is quiet, and that's unusual, and it seems ominous, and they need to figure out why. And this particular individual specifically has a lot of knowledge when it comes to certain beings that are within the ocean, and they think that these beings might have more knowledge that they could provide about what's going on in the after. Then you have a character that's kind of just going into this descent along with some other people into this forest, and it's terrifying, and that's where a lot of the horror things come into the picture. Additionally, a lot of the horror things come into the picture through one of the most despicable, horrible perspectives that I've read from in anything. They are such a disgusting human being, but they are also very captivating to read from, and you are consistently wondering, okay, I know this character feels very villainous, but in their efforts to basically be a horrible person, are they going to actually help the cause against some of what the threats might be? Or are they going to make the situation much, much worse? And I just was so thoroughly gripped by this story the whole time. I think Richard Swan does eldritch horror so well, and as noted, I feel very spoiled now for any other fantasy horror that I pick up. Also, I would love to know what your fantasy horror recommendations are, because I'm very open to checking out more of this subgenre. So far, this is a point for I am very much in agreement with Reddit on this one. The next one, less so. This one has come up pretty often recently, because I read this book recently, and that would be The Raven Scholar. I'm very, very happy for this author, for the success that they've had. I'm very excited about the implications of the popularity of this book, as it is a genre bender, and it is really utilizing a lore-heavy and also a mystery fantasy blend. It's utilizing both of those things really, really well. And that's exciting because I think we're starting to see fantasy shift into something new and original. I think ever since fantasy and fantasy romance have kind of had this divide occur where they are emerging as separate from each other, it's allowing for other subgenres in fantasy to get a little bit more attention. And I think it's really exciting because this one really is doing so many things, and it is such a genre bender. But the tone of the story just didn't quite work for me. And additionally, I would say some of the characters, I just really didn't fall as in love with them. But I am, as I said, really happy for the author, and I'm also really happy for so many people, whether it be here, this book community on YouTube, or the community on Book Talk, or on Reddit, or just people that don't engage with bookternet types of videos or content regardless, and they are just readers, and they really, really liked this one. I'm just so excited for so many people to have found this and resonated with it and enjoyed it so much. It just really, it didn't quite work for me. I really wish it had. There were so many things, especially at the beginning. There was so much about it that I was excited about. That then means we are currently 1-1 for Don't Quite Align and Completely Align. Next up, we have the book Greenteeth, and I was really excited to see Greenteeth there because I don't know that this story has gotten quite the level of hype or love that some of the other new fantasy releases from this year have gotten. And I see pretty frequently people, they're not opposed to romantic relationships getting a high amount of priority and page time in their books. However, they feel like some of the other kinds of relationships that people have in their lives don't get as much attention. So for example, you don't see sibling relationships as much, you don't see parental and child relationships as much, or even mentor-mentee. And then also friendships. It can feel sometimes like friendships are this accessory to the story. They take a backseat to all the other kinds of relationships, and they never really get their chance to shine. And I think Greenteeth really does a great job with having a friendship be a pretty integral part of the story, in addition to just kind of having this fun, almost quest feeling that feels somewhat nostalgic, and taking some more fairy tale type of feelings and having that in a way that feels fresh and original. So I am really in the same camp as the individual who mentioned Greenteeth. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I think that it has a lot to offer that a lot of people are going to really like. So currently we are at 2-1. After that, we have the Devils. And I think most of you know, unfortunately, the Devils did not work for me. And I am a huge Abercrombie fan. And I have said before that I think if the Devils is the first thing I had read by Abercrombie, I might not have thought to continue on with other Abercrombie works because it really didn't work for me. But if you're somebody who has read the Devils and you've never read anything else by Abercrombie, I would say maybe still give First Law a try because they're pretty different from each other. And the humor, while there are sprinkles of it as far as like the snarkiness and whatnot, I really feel like it's used differently and much more sparingly in First Law and Age of Madness than it is in the Devils. The Devils kind of feels like action and snark in the same way that you see within something like Deadpool, and I don't at all think that that's necessarily true for First Law and Age of Madness. First Law and Age of Madness are more dry humor that is borderline satirical against institutions and powerful people. But anyway, regardless, a lot of people mention the Devils as being one of their favorites. I think somebody even said they'd read the Devils twice already this year because they liked it so much, and I mean, that's awesome. I love that feeling when you read something, you're like, I just want to read it again. That's not me with the Devils, definitely. But I also recognize it's a very distinct kind of humor in this story, and if it doesn't work for you, you kind of can't escape it. It's there constantly throughout the story. And if you're not a fan, which I don't mind the kind of humor that was here. It was just the amount of it that we caught. But if you're not a fan, then it's not going to work for you. And if you are, you're going to just have so much of it to bask with it. It is we're now 2 for 2. The Devils didn't quite work for me. And it's interesting because the Devils and the Raven Scholar are both quite popular. And Grave Empire and Greenteeth, I think, less so. And I'm not trying to be that hipster person that's like, well, I like the things that other people don't like as much because I found the hidden gems. But I am currently, thus far, falling in the camp of the ones that aren't as popular are the ones that are actually working for me a little bit more. It's kind of reminding me of within fantasy romance. A lot of times the ones that are really popular, they don't quite end up fitting my taste. The ones that are, the ones that are like, I'm a hunky man. I also am tall and buff. The size of things is just astounding. Like there's those kinds. I tend to like the ones a little bit less emphasis on like, isn't the guy so hot? Oh my gosh. That's a little less my thing. But not that that's all the popular ones, obviously. I'm just saying that sometimes the popular stuff doesn't quite work for you. And sometimes it does. And in this instance, in fantasy, similar to what I find my experiences have been in fantasy romance, currently, that is where I would fall. Now, next up we have Watermoon. I would not say Watermoon has been one of my favorites of the year. I also wouldn't say it was a huge swing and a miss. It was just kind of, oh, okay, that was nice. It did feel like a Ghibli movie. I absolutely see the comparisons, kind of like Spirited Away, but more grown up. And that was fun. But I also wonder if I didn't have the Ghibli favoritism, if perhaps I wouldn't have enjoyed this quite so much. If I had never seen any of those films and I didn't love that studio so much and I went into this story, would I have read it in the same way? Or did I, maybe put into it a little bit of my own love of Ghibli? Did I impose that onto the story? Regardless of whether I did or did not, I still just found the writing and the story and the characters to all be fine. I didn't dislike it. I didn't love it. I thought certain things were done well. I thought certain things I just didn't care about all that much. So it's kind of more in the middle for me. So it's like it could, go either direction, but I would say it kind of sits with maybe I kind of agree and kind of don't agree. And then last for today, sadly, we're back to another miss, and that would be The Night and the Moth. I was really hopeful. I found that as the plot was moving forward, I felt like I wanted to spend more time in the development phase, the exposition phase, so that I cared a little bit more about the things later. But I didn't dislike the writing style, like the tone and the way that the author builds the general feeling of the story and kind of the aesthetic, to use a overused word. I liked that fairly well. I didn't really care about the characters. I didn't really love the plot, but I've seen so many people love this one, and obviously somebody on Reddit, it was one of their top new releases of this year. It's been a lot of people's. It's been on a list of tops for the year for a lot of individuals, and I unfortunately am not one of them. So sadly, currently, with what I have read and what a lot of the users mentioned on Reddit have read, I am currently not in alignment. My hope, though, is that once I read A Drop of Corruption and once I read some of the other ones that I saw mentioned, my hope is that I will find some more. There were some that I hadn't really heard that much about. I'll have the Reddit post linked in case you like to check it out. But there were some mentioned that I hadn't seen talked about all that much. And so absolutely it has, at the very least, put some books on my radar that maybe I had seen here and there but hadn't really thought about or written down and kind of formally decided I need to pick this up at some point. So I am excited to give some other ones a try. Let me know, though, what are some that have worked for you, and then what's one that you feel like you do not understand the hype for whatsoever. Thanks so much for watching, though. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.